Well, I got an opportunity years ago to coach a girls' varsity basketball team, and I worked really hard at coaching and worked with the team. We had some difficulties as a team. We didn't have anyone who could shoot very well, and so the goal of our team was to get as close to the basket as possible just to have a chance to maybe get close to the basket. And so worked with them throughout the season, did as much as I could, and we had a couple games where we lost really close. And then there comes this game, and we're at the very end of the game. There's 8 seconds left. I take a timeout. We've got the ball. We're under the basket that we need to score at. I know exactly what the defense is going to do, and so I get the girls together, and this is a varsity high school girls team, and they're all around, and so I draw up the perfect play. I am telling you, it was going to work. In fact, it will work anytime. If you ever need a play and you're a coach, let me know. I'll show you what it is. But the way that it worked was the person inbounding had to get it to the person, and we were going to get them open right near the basket. So I'll go through this whole scenario. I get it all set up. I draw it all out, and I say, okay, girls, are we ready to go? And so we bring them all together, and we all put our hands in together, and I'm getting ready, and I look in their eyes and say, okay, everyone know what you got to do. And in that moment, the girl that's going to inbound the ball is standing there with her hand like this, and she looks at the person next to her, and she goes, oh, I really like your nails. Needless to say, the girl did not inbound the ball to the right person. We did not score, and we did not win the game. And I know that those are kind of silly situations, but if you've ever been a coach, if you've ever been a teacher, if you've ever been a parent, there are these moments that you kind of do the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Like maybe I shouldn't have had that person inbounding the ball because she wasn't really paying attention to the game. In fact, she was more interested in somebody's nail and how pretty they were rather than the moment that we needed her. And yet I think we all have these as parents. We all have these as coaches. We all have these as teachers. Whenever we're talking about raising kids right, we have these shoulda, woulda, couldas that kind of hit us. I know looking at our life with having 4 girls, each of them are unique and very different. Rachel was our couldn't child. She couldn't do things. Like if she was standing on the edge of the pool and when I was in the pool, I said, jump to me. There's just something in her that said, I can't do that. And so we spent a lot of time saying, you can do this. Come on, you know what to do. It's okay. I've got you. I've got it. I'll protect you. I'll keep you from drowning. It's okay. And it would always take us a lot to get her. But Naomi, our second child, she was the shouldn't child. She would do things that she shouldn't do, not the bad things, but just the crazy things. Like she would jump in the water and nobody's there, and she would be underwater, and we'd have to jump in and get her. There's times when I would do this thing with her where she would stand on my shoulders and she'd jump off, but she'd always grab my hands and jump off. And there was time when she didn't grab my hands, and she ended up breaking both of her arms. And so it's in those moments you're like, okay, you shouldn't do this. We always had to tell you shouldn't do this. You're going to get hurt. JL was our wouldn't child. She would not do things. No matter how many times we asked her, no matter how many times we encouraged her to do something, she was just like, if I don't want to do it, you can't make me do it. I don't know who you think you are, but I'm 3 and I'll do whatever I want to do. And that was just her. I remember we took the girls to Disneyland, and we decided we wanted a family picture going down the log ride. But for some reason, every time we went down, it didn't work. Like somebody was looking weird or strange. We couldn't get the perfect picture. And we did that ride like 6 or 7 times in a row. I will tell you, JL hates that ride. That is the one ride she never, ever wants to do. She didn't want to do it in the first place. She did it once. Why are we doing this more? And so every picture we got was her screaming and crying. And we finally kept one, and it's a great picture. Abby, we have our couldn't child. We had our wouldn't child, or shouldn't child, and we had our wouldn't child. Abby was, I already did it. She was always the one that had already done something that she shouldn't have done. She was always the one who jumped and did something when she shouldn't have, or she skipped out on her sisters being a part of it, and we were always telling her, hey, why don't you take a second, think about what you're doing. Hey, why don't you have your sister go with you? Why don't you do it? Was always, she has already done it. She's already accomplished it. And I think looking back as a parent, I know that there are many, many moments in my life where I have those shoulda, woulda, couldas. I should have done this, or if I would have just done this, or if I could have done this, things would be better. And as your kids grow up, I think that sometimes is the biggest detriment for parenting. Teachers, you know what this is like. In fact, about a month ago, you were scrambling with a bunch of shoulda, woulda, couldas because you're getting your kids ready for the testing. And you're scrambling, like, well, we should have taught this, or we should have known this. If you've coached kids, you know after losing a big game how that feels. Because you think of all the shoulda, woulda, couldas that I should have done this. I should have had this player do that. We all have these moments. As grandparents, we kind of think that way too. We start doing the things for our grandkids that we shoulda, woulda, or coulda done for our own kids, and we see, man, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have said this, or I could have done that. I'm going to do this with my grandkids and teach them the right way because I already messed up on that one. I'm going to fix this one. We just do that. It's part of our nature. It's part of our rear view mirror personal theology that we look in the rear view mirror and we go, man, if I could just do something different, if I could just change something, I would. Last week, we started talking about raising kids right. And the reality is, we know if you're a parent, you're a teacher, if you're a volunteer helping in kids ministry or working with youth, if there's anything that you do with kids, you know what you're doing. You're trying to raise a little sinner to be a bigger, little less sinner. That's what you're trying to do. And so when you look back and you see that they're not sinning as less as you would like them to, you kind of look back and go, man, if I could have just done this, if we really should have done that with our kids. I want to give us a very practical, very simple passage. Proverbs 22, turn there real quick. I want to show you something. I want to unpack a part of this passage that is so helpful. And again, this passage has been misrepresented, it's been misinterpreted, it's been used as a bludgeon to parents who didn't do a very good job. Their kids have grown up and they're not living for God. And so either the parents beat themselves up or somebody else does it for them. Well, you should have done this. If you would have just spanked them more, whatever it is, we get this thing in us where we look at this passage and we start beating ourselves up with it, or we beat somebody else up with it. I think we've misunderstood it. We've misinterpreted it. And so I want to peel back some layers of this passage. And so, as we said, last week we started with this, that no one should do alone, and no one can do alone what we can do better, what we all can do better together. Well, we want to start unpacking some of this, and we're going to look at two words in this passage, two of the most important words that have been misunderstood and misquoted and misrepresented in raising kids, not just raising kids as a family, but raising kids as a church family. It is an incredible responsibility that all of us, regardless of whether we have kids or not, are responsible for. Every single one of us. And it binds all of us together, and it doesn't leave this for us to point fingers at a parent. It points fingers right back at us that it's our responsibility to do this. Out in the lobby, you'll notice that over on the right side, there's this marble display that's out there. And so we've got several marbles. There's 18 jars of marbles out there. The first one is this one right here. There's 936 marbles in this thing. This is when your child is first born. You have 936 weeks to raise them right. By the time they get to their senior year, that infamous senior year, you have only 52 weeks left. That is meant to be kind of a time frame, kind of like a calendar to give you an idea of where you're at in your kid's life. Did you know that this is the middle? This is when you are halfway raising your kids the right way. This is third grade. You are halfway in raising your kids. You're at the halfway point of raising kids by third grade. Obviously, when we look at something like that, we go, man, time is limited. I don't have very much time, but there's so much that my kids need to understand. There's so many things being thrown at them. How can I raise them the right way? Well, look at this verse, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. It says this, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. I want to look at two words. The two words are train up. Train up. I want you to underline that word or highlight it, do something so you can just kind of focus on that word. That's one word in Hebrew. It's the word chanach. Okay, kind of look at your person next to you and say chanach. Yeah, it's kind of a weird word. It's kind of, you got to use kind of your throat thing. It's a very interesting word. When you begin to break down, see, here's the cool thing about Hebrew. When they would use words, they symbolized something, they meant something, they were illustrated by something. And even the letters meant something that were used for it. The word chanach in the Hebrew basically means this. It means to dedicate. A few weeks ago, we had Micah and Dallas dedicate Boston. They weren't dedicating their child just to go, well, this is what you do when you have a baby. You got to stand in front of the church and say, we dedicate, and then you're done. They weren't passively just kind of flippantly doing that. They were making a commitment in front of all of us that they want to take the next 18 years to raise their kid right. But they also were asking us to come alongside them and help them accomplish that. Because they know what we all know, you can't do it alone. There's too much at stake. Our child's eternity is in the balance, and we need to do everything we can to raise them right. And so this word chanak means to dedicate. It's a lifetime commitment. It's full focus. It's all in. In fact, the Hebraic illustration of it, when you kind of get into it, it's this idea of placing something sour on the roof of the mouth of a baby so that they can learn how to suck. And so you do something to cause something. You're doing something to cause something in the life of an individual. And so when Solomon writes, it says to train them up, it's something that we need to do. In fact, in the Proverbs version of it, it's a verb. And it means it basically means this: begin using something new to teach something that is a little bit old or different or something that's important. Do something new to teach something important, right? In fact, I think we think back on this. Think back of the teachers that were your favorite teachers, the best teachers you ever had. What is it about them that they did? They would teach something new in a new way, a timeless truth that was valuable for you to understand. And they just had a way of doing that. They never did things always the same way. They always found new ways. Sometimes they tweaked a little bit of what they did each year, but every year it was something new. The best way to teach kids, as we are finding out, is not the way that most of us grew up. In fact, most of us, the way that we grew up, we would sit in rows and we would hear somebody teach at us, and they would do the little flannel graph thing, and we would go, yeah, that's great. And then we'd sing some songs, and that's how we learned. But some of that has changed so much now. In fact, now we start to see that kids learn much better in circles than they do in rows. Yes, there needs to be these teaching moments where they hear God's word, where they understand the story, but it is so much better when they're able to talk about it, experience it, ask questions about it, wrestle with it, answer things about it. It's so much better when they can have a conversation, they can build relationship around the principle or around the idea that you're trying to teach. And so we want to find ways to do that. And I think one of the great passages, if you have your Bibles, turn over to Deuteronomy chapter 6. God instituted this with the people of Israel right off the bat. And he knew how important it was for kids to understand the right way to follow God. And it was so important that he instructed not just parents. We think that when we read this. But watch what happens. Look at the verse in its context, starting chapter 6, starting in verse 4. I'll start in verse 4 and then jump to verse 5. It says, listen, Israel. Right away, he's talking to an entire nation. He's not talking to just an individual or just a parent. He's saying the entire nation, Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These words I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Verse 7. Repeat them. He's not saying, hey, parents, you're the only ones responsible to do this. He's telling the entire nation, and we know that today, when he's talking to the nation of Israel, he's talking to us as a church. He says, repeat them to your children. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you grow up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your city gates. Most of what we do as individuals is training up the people around us. What we do as a parent is training up our kids. What we do as a teacher is training up kids. What we do as a church is to train each other up, train up even our children. We are responsible to helping our kids grow in an understanding of who Jesus is and what his love looks like. I think another great illustration that comes from this phrase, train up, is even just in the letters that are used for that word chanak. One of the letters is incredibly symbolic. I want you to do something. Take out your hand, okay, and grab the hand of somebody next to you. And if you don't have anyone, you can just grab your own hand. That's you, Lori. Yeah. Hey, so take your hand. Okay, take your hand. Take it off again. Okay, now grab the hand of the person next to you. What did you have to do when you did that? You had to open your hand, right? One of the letters in Train Up is an open palm, that there's this opening of your hand in order to grab the hand of somebody else to say, come with me, help me do this. Isn't that beautiful? It's an incredible picture. I think there's other ways to illustrate it. Last week, our phrase or our principle that we focused on is that no one can do alone what we can do better together. No one can do alone what we could do better together. There needs to be this joining of hands to come around, to come alongside of, to wrap around the kids around us, the kids that we have an opportunity to impact. If we want to raise our kids right, parents, if you want to raise your kids right, let me give you principle number 2, and this one's huge. And this goes much beyond your family. Your family is just included in this one automatically, but it goes beyond that. Here it is, second principle. Widen the circle of influence with the right people. Widen the circle of influence with the right people. If you are only relying on your family to help you raise your kids, you're going to have a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. There's going to be a lot of gaps that are left open. It's great that you have family that can come alongside, but if that's your only source for coming alongside of your kids, you're going to have a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And I only know that from 25 years of experience of working with parents, with kids, and watching them grow up. And every single one of them that just surrounded themselves just with their family, they have a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. But the ones who surround themselves and got the right people around their kids made a difference. In fact, when I was growing up, and then even as I got into youth ministry, we used a phrase. We can't use it anymore because it's not very PC, but we were always told, look for fat people. I know, that sounds bad. F-A-T, faithful, available, and the other one is thoughtful. Faithful, available, thoughtful. Look for people that are faithful in their relationship with God. Look for people that are available, that can surround you and surround your kids, that will find the time to be with your kids, and find those people that are thoughtful, that they think about you, they think about your kids, they say happy birthday, they say good morning, they look for you. Look for those kind of people and surround yourself with those kind of people. I saw this illustration this week, and so I'm going to do this. It's kind of a unique one, and it's going to there's a few layers to it. But I think it will help us understand kind of how this looks. And so let me give you this as I kind of continue to tell. Lori, will you take this one first part for me right here? Just hold on to that. Just hold on to that. It's a circle, so you got it. There you go. Okay. Oh man, it's all tangled up. That's right. I'll get it. When we start this off, there we go. All right. Oh man. When we talk about getting around those people that are like that, we always want to look for people that have had an impact. And so I was thinking back about my life of the different people that maybe impacted my life, maybe helped me understand my faith. I remember I had some grade school, elementary age teachers in our Sunday school class that would teach me about God. You get to represent one of those. But as I hand you this, if you hold on to that string, I want you to think about maybe somebody that had an impact on your life. Somebody that helped you grow in your faith a little bit. Maybe it was your spouse. Maybe it was somebody else. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was somebody. We're good. Yep, that's good. Okay, just hold on to that right there. Maybe it was an elder or a deacon in your church. Maybe it was a youth leader. Maybe it was somebody who had just some type of impact. Maybe it was a grandparent. Maybe it was a parent. One of the unique stories that we see in the Bible is about these two ladies. One of them is named Eunice, and the other is named Lois. Eunice was married a Greek man. We don't know very much about him. In fact, we don't hear anything about him. We just hear we just know that she was married to this Greek man, and that Eunice did everything she could to raise her kids right. She brought them to church. She connected them with people that maybe would pour into them. She taught him the Bible. She focused on how he could understand it. And then there was Lois. Lois was the grandma. Lois was the grandma who, we don't know if she was the mother-in-law or if she was the mother of Eunice, but she poured into this kid's life. And she did the little things to help this child understand who God was. Let me get a little slack so I don't trip. I don't want to fall down, all right? And then she taught him, and she showed him what God's word said and the value of God's word. And as this boy continued to grow up, there was probably a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas for Eunice and for, here we go, we're good. Yeah, we'll go over this way. Good, this is beautiful. Yeah, it's okay if it touches you. It's not diseased. COVID's dead. So there was all this stuff going on. Well, around by the mid-20s, this young man got connected with one of the most advanced evangelists and church leaders of his time. And he got to be mentored by this guy. He got to go around and learn what it meant to follow Christ. And every day he was learning something new. And he was figuring out how to lead a church. And he was figuring out how to point people to Christ. Excuse me as I walk through here. That's a little awkward. I know. Weird angle. Here you go. Hold this. You're good. You're doing great. You're doing great. You just started holding it for the first second, so you're doing great. And so there's all this that he was learning. And then by the time he got to be around his mid-30s, actually early 30s, he was placed as a leader, as the pastor of a church. Now, this is unheard of in this time. One, churches were kind of a new thing, but you usually didn't start doing that until you were kind of more of an elder age, like 40s or 50s, that you would pastor. But he was able to step into that. Go ahead and grab that. Yeah, that's good. And so this was cool. Yeah, I'm just stepping over chairs like, here you go. So this young man grew up, and he became the pastor of a church in a place that was difficult. There was a lot of immorality. There was a lot of bad stuff that would go on. There was bad leadership. And he was placed in a position to lead a church in one of the most unheard of locations. Here you go, grab that one. There you go, very good. And so, yeah, you're good, you're good. Nope, you're good, that's perfect. And then we'll go back here. This man's name was Timothy. And he was led by a guy by the name of Paul. You've heard of Paul, haven't you? And Paul had this huge impact on Timothy's life, so much so that by the time Timothy took over this church, he was able to lead it in a way. Now, maybe as you've been thinking about this, you've been thinking about the people who have maybe had an impact on your life. Maybe it was, maybe it was a parent, grandparent. I know for me, it's been people like my parents and my in-laws. They've had an impact on me spiritually, but I also know that for me, it's also been at times my own kids. My own kids have taught me about, there you go, Naomi, you're one of my kids. It's taught me about who Jesus is and how important it is to have a relationship with God. Here you go, Eddie, hold on to that. Eddie, you had a huge impact on Mason, and he had a huge impact on you probably. If we had more conversation, you'd probably be able to tell us how this kid actually helped you grow spiritually. There's all kinds of people that have had an impact in our lives, even people that we don't expect, people that we don't know. Here you go, grab that one. Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of strings, so we're going to be doing this for a bit. Yeah, so we're going to go over here now. Okay. Give me the name of one person that has impacted you. Charles, very good. All right. Seth, give me the name of one person who's had an impact on you. Coach, very good. Go ahead and let's go around over here. This is going to get crazy. Yeah. You guys get to wind this up at the end. Give me one person's name that impacted you. Veronica, very good, very good. All right, let's go over here. Here you go, Dallas. One person that's had an impact on you. My grandfather, awesome. Tim, give me a name. Robert, very good. Okay, here we go. Going through here. Coach, one person's name. Jenny Sievers. Where are you, Jenny? Come on down. No, just kidding. We're not doing that game show. All right. I'm not Drew Carey. That's next week. All right. Give me the name of one person that's had an impact on your life. Your nanny. Okay. I was making sure I was saying that right. Okay. Good. One person who has impacted you. Casey. Grab that one right there. Very good. Good. Okay. Give me the name of one person who's had an impact on you. Finnegan. Excellent. Okay. Stanley. One person who's had a biggest impact on you.
E. Norman.
E. Norman. All right? Mr. Cartwright. One person.
My dad.
Your dad. Very good. All right. Now, one person who's impacted you. Father-in-law. Good. Now I want us to think about something. Keep a hold of those. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute because I want us to think about this for a second. There are all these connections that have happened all around us. There's all these moments, all these people who have poured into us. There are all those people who opened their hands and grabbed our hand and said, come on, I need to show you something. You see, as a parent, the biggest struggle really is the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Because we wish, we hope, we really hope that there's somebody who's going to come alongside of our kid. Because there's going to be a moment when our kid, our child, doesn't need us anymore. And it's hard for a parent to grasp that. As you're holding that newborn baby, you are taught, you are conditioned immediately that this child is going to need me all the time. Please go to sleep. Stop needing me. But there's this part of us that is built into us. And then when they turn 18, if you're still holding them in their hands and you're still changing their diaper, there's a bigger problem, right? There's a time when they're going to get to the age where they need other adults in their life. In fact, this is what it says. I love how Reggie Joyner says it. A time will come when you and your child will need another adult in their lives besides you. And it's great when we have other family, when we have close friends that can do that. But it's even a bigger picture when a church family surrounds them. Right now, all those things are kind of connected, aren't they? I want us to think about it this way. If you are a parent of a child right now, it is never too early and it's never too late to begin looking for, finding strategic people that can pour into the life of your kid. I can name the people. I can tell you the stories of the people who took on our kids and loved our kids. Mike, Julie, LaDonna, Andrew, Allie. In fact, Andrew's the one that I got this illustration from. People who poured into them, small group leaders or Sunday school teachers like Shelley or like Kelly or individuals that maybe it was a Melissa or it was a Faith or it was a John. Somebody poured into them. Paula was their first grade elementary teacher. I think of the names and the people who just loved on my kids. And I'm telling you right now, if anything good comes from my kids, it's not because of me. I poured all the bad stuff into them. All the stuff that you go, man, why did your kid do that? It's dad's fault. But all the good stuff is all those people that came alongside of, whether it was Lori or whether it was grandparents or whether it was somebody else, there are people that poured into them and taught them things about Jesus to help them understand what it meant to love God. So how do we widen the circle of influence with our kids? As a parent, I want to talk to you first. If you're a parent, how do you widen that circle? How do you get that to where it makes sense? All right? Keep hold of the string. I'm going to come back to it in a second. Parents, there are 3 things your kids need. And I just do this because it makes sense to me. I've used these phrases before, these words before, but this is just what makes sense to me. 3 things that every child, no matter who they are, no matter how old they are, they need. They need to know what it means to believe. They need to know what it means to believe. Every kid needs to understand God's word and God's grace. Every kid needs to understand discipline and God's word and how that fits together and how grace fits in with that. They need to understand, they need to have clear boundaries and expectations. They need to know what it means to believe in Jesus. They also need to belong. Every kid, every single kid, no matter where they grow up, no matter what their family looks like, they need to belong to someone and somewhere. They need to know where they fit. Every child, they're all the same. None of them are unique. They need to know what to believe. They need to know that they belong. And third, they need to know what it means to be loved. They need to know that they are beloved by Jesus and how that flows through them to be loved to the people around them. Every child needs to know those 3 things. So how do you do that? If you're a parent, how do I implement those things? How do I make sure those things are done? Let me give you 4 questions to ask. Other than family, answer these questions on there, and they're in your notes. Who seems to care about your kids? Start listing out names of people that seem to care about your kids, that ask you about your kids, that talk about your kids, that celebrate with you and your kids, that want to invest in time into your kids. I know we live in a world where all we hear is the negative stuff about some adult doing something. I get that. But start with the question, who are the people that really love my kids? Second question, other than family, who are the trusted adults who can speak into your child's life at the phase they're in? We have teachers upstairs right now speaking into the life of your kid right now at the phase they're in. That's why it's so important that we find opportunities, that we make every moment matter. I know we have vacations, we have times when we take off, we have times when schedules are crazy, but just think about it this way, parents. Every moment, every time, okay, I'm going to make you feel guilty for a second, but every time you miss church, you're missing an opportunity for your kid to grow in their faith. You have to understand that. Every moment matters. You don't have time to waste. Third, other than family, who has a servant's heart that will help your kid learn how to serve others? I think that's one of the biggest things our kids need to learn, especially once they hit the junior high, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade stage. They need to learn what it looks like to serve others, because they spend so much of their time comparing themselves to other people. That's what all of junior high and high school really is. It's all a comparison thing. It looks a lot different when you begin to serve others. That's why we ask our high schoolers and our junior hires to serve during VBS or to serve in ministries. It is so important. I would even say this, 9 times out of 10, serving is more important than any program we can put together. Because kids need to know what it means to serve others, to make other people more important than themselves. And I think all of us adults can probably agree with that, and we need to learn that too. Fourth, other than family, who do you know that knows about the grace of the gospel? Who do you know that knows about the grace of the gospel? Those are the questions you should ask. But what does it happen as a church family? How do we do this? Well, that's where this string comes in. I want you to look at the string. Everyone, there's a lot of you that are touching a string or holding on to a piece. That's pretty cool. Here's what I want to do. It's kind of slack. There's a whole lot of space. There's a whole lot of gaps in this string right now. There's a whole lot of gaps. There's a whole lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas going on. But what happens when everyone grabs a piece of the string? Everyone grab a part of the string from around you. Everyone grab it and start tightening it up. Start kind of pulling it in. If you need to grab a little extra, you can put a little extra in your hand. That's fine. Start grabbing it. Start tightening it up. See if you can get up over the chairs a little bit and start holding it up in the air. Everyone needs to be touching the string. Everyone needs to be touching a piece of the string. If you need to kind of move, if you need to pass it over to somebody so somebody else can grab it, make sure everyone is touching a piece of string. There's some people in the back there. There's people back over in the corner that I didn't get to. Start pulling the string and start getting more slack. Go ahead. I've got plenty right here. I've got a whole roll. Start pulling on the string. Make sure everyone has a piece of it. Hold it up in the air. Keep going. All right, we got everybody just about? I want you to see something. There's a whole lot less shoulda, woulda, couldas now. There's a whole lot of people touching that string of discipleship. And maybe you're keep your hands up because you're all volunteering for this week. That's great. No, keep your hands up because I want you to see this. I need you to visualize this. What would happen if an entire church family said, I need to connect with a kid? Maybe it's just in prayer. Maybe you're praying for a kid. Maybe some of you don't have any idea that Pat prays for you every week. And Pat, he's praying for Larry way back there, who he doesn't even know because he's my father-in-law. But Pat prays for my family. And eventually the string connects to where Larry's at. And Larry, he's never been here, he's been here before, but he doesn't know all of you, but yet he's praying for Trinity over here. You see, we all can have an impact on the people around us. We can all have an impact on raising kids right. This is what it means to widen the circle. Okay, you can put those down. Let me give you this to end. And then I'll wind that up. Yeah. Here's the thought. Ready? You see, we all have a part in raising kids the right way. And over the next few years, what you're going to begin to see is that we are going to make a very conscious effort to be a church family that surrounds families. A church family who loves kids, not just from the seats, but in action, in purpose. We're going to find ways to do things better than we've done them before. Not that the past has been bad, but we can do them better. We can add to them. We can upgrade those opportunities. So here's how we can do this right now, how every single one of you can start right now. 4 things. Pray for families. Pray for families. Start with that. Pray for the families that you know. Pray for the families in your community. Pray for the family that lives next door to you. Pray for the family that you see in the grocery line. Pray for the family that's getting gas. Pray for every single family that you see. Begin praying for them. Pray that God will open their hearts to what Jesus has for them. Pray for the families that are going to be bringing their kids this week. That leads us to the second thing, volunteer in ministries. Find an opportunity to volunteer in one way or another. You don't have to love kids to love kids. You may not be able to stand how crazy kids are, but you can still volunteer to help love on them and maybe serve the people that are serving them. There's ways that you can do that. In fact, at the end today, I'll give you one way that you get to all help with that. Volunteer in ministries. Third, invite everyone. I will say this. If we want to be a church that is impacting the city of Dumas, we need to know what it means to invite every single person we meet to church. I would say start this week, start today. If you see a kid anywhere in town, invite them to VBS starting tomorrow. Why not? There's cards out there. You can take a little card and you can hand them the card. They will get all the information. Invite them. Even if they don't speak the same language as you, you can hand it to them. Who knows what God's going to do with that? Every kid, every family, every person needs a place to belong and to know that they belong. And I can't think of a better place than that First Street Church. We do a pretty good job of loving people the way they are. We do a pretty good job of that. So let's invite people to jump in because we want them to see the love of Jesus. And fourth, this is the toughest one. Embrace change. Everyone loves change until something changes. Everyone says, yeah, we need to change it. And then it changes. They're like, I don't like this anymore. I am telling you right now, embrace change because change is going to happen. If COVID has taught us anything, is that yesterday is done and tomorrow is new. We have to embrace change. Programs are going to change. The way we reach kids are going to change. The way we do ministry is going to change. How Wednesday night's going to change. How Sunday morning will change. Everything is going to change. Just embrace that and then hold on because it's awesome when it does. It's awesome when a church family says, you know what? The kids are worth it. You know what? Other people getting to know Jesus is worth it. Yeah, I may not like the color of the carpet, but it's worth it. It's worth it when things change that will reach people that need change to happen inside of them. We all need to grab a part of that string. We all need to hold on to it. We need to tighten up our discipleship because we don't want any more shoulda, woulda, couldas. We want to minimize as many of those as we can. So as we close, I hope that we have a mentality in our minds, in our hearts, in our spirits. A mentality that says, what needs to be done? How can I help? And what can I pray for? What needs to be done? What needs to be done in our church, in our community, in my neighborhood? What needs to be done in the people's lives that are around me? Who needs to know Jesus? What needs to be done and how can I help? I'm not okay with just sitting on the sidelines anymore. I want to grab a string and I want to tighten up discipleship. I want to have an impact on the eternity of somebody's life, a positive impact. What needs to be done? How can I help? And how can I begin praying for that? As we close this morning, we're going to sing. And we're going to sing that God will continue to build our lives around Him. That our life will be built on who Jesus is and what He's done for us because Jesus taught us something. He said, love God, love others. You want to know how to love others? Wash their feet. Serve them. Get down on your hands and knees. Get dirty. You do the stuff that nobody else wants to do to help other people know that they belong to something bigger than what they're experiencing right now. We can tighten up our discipleship. I want you to jump in. This morning as we sing together, maybe you're a parent and you're like, I've been wrestling. My kid's driving me nuts. We want to pray for you. We want to know how to pray for you, so come find one of us. If you're a person who maybe you don't have kids, or maybe your kids are grown up, or maybe it's just a weird time in your life and you don't know anything about what's going on with your kids, we want to pray for you. We want to encourage you.